Hey everybody, I wanted to bring you another video about Airbnbs. This is a really important topic that I want to uh, discuss with you guys, and because this is a big issue that is affecting affordability and availability of housing stock to normal families who are lendable uh, in a normal environment, but Airbnbs have taken a lot of housing stock out of the market and driven up home prices, uh, reducing the housing stock, and it's really become a major problem, not just in America, but around the world. And so I think really the theme of this episode is the world versus Airbnb. And I want to cover three stories from around the world illustrating how the consequences of Airbnb's model is being combated. And the first article is out of Euronews. It's entitled, Got an Airbnb in Marseille? You could be forced to buy a new property under the mayor's new plan. Mayor Benoit Payan says he wants to stop holiday rental owners from wanting to make money off of the people in Marseille. While the debate surrounding over-tourism rages across Europe, one French mayor has announced a novel plan to tackle the problem. In Marseille, he wants to make landlords who rent properties on Airbnb buy back another property to put up for long-term rental to increase the housing supply. So this is the trade-off that the mayor is proposing, that if someone wants to buy an Airbnb, they have to buy another one to put on the long-term rental market. Speaking to the France Info radio station, Payan claimed that up to 75% of the property developers in the city were not from Marseille. This sounds like a lot of large metro areas in the United States, actually, that are being bought up by investors. And that's what is making housing just unavailable and unaffordable for the locals. So it's not just America, it's France also that's suffering from this. He also suggested that the majority were renting out their properties using short-term rental sites such as Airbnb. I'm not going to oblige anyone who wants to rent out a property on Airbnb to buy an apartment and put it up for long-term rental, he said. I am going to use everything the law allows me as a weapon. It's going to make them stop wanting to make money off of the people of Marseille. So he is definitely seeing these Airbnb investors as opportunistic predators to buy up property and rent it out to tourists who can enjoy the fruits and the benefits and all of the amenities of the town of Marseille while locals are being left behind. It's not the first time the mayor of France's second largest city has made his feelings known about Airbnb. Payan previously told Maritima Radio that he wanted to prohibit people whose second homes should be used for normal rentals from putting them as accommodations on Airbnb. Currently, people in Marseille who want to rent out a second home on Airbnb must request authorization for a change of use from the town hall before being legally allowed to do so. So this is the permitting process in Marseille. Payan claims that before he became mayor in 2020, 4% of requests were refused. Today, he says that figure is 82%. In Marseille, there will be the strictest and strongest regulations in France to fight against Airbnb, Payan insisted to Maritima. Along with Paris, Marseille has set up a so-called Airbnb brigade, which works to identify illegal listings. All of France has strict rules on Airbnb rentals, but local authorities are also able to impose their own rules if they wish. In recent years, an increasing number of mayors and local governments are choosing to do just that in order to battle housing shortages and crack down on over-tourism. This sounds like Marseille is not that different from Portland, Oregon, that I covered in a previous video, who is really trying to crack down on illegal Airbnb listings. But the major hurdle obstacle for Portland, Oregon is enforcement. And they've admitted that they don't have the personnel or the technology to to ferret out these illegal listings. All of France has strict rules on Airbnb rentals, but local authorities are also able to impose their own rules if they wish. The French capital famously fought a long legal battle with Airbnb, which resulted in a ruling from the European Court of Justice, which requires local authorization for short-term property rentals. In Paris, any rental of second homes on Airbnb is now prohibited in Paris, and all owners are limited on the number of days they are allowed to rent out their main home on the platform. On top of those regulations, any property owners, French or otherwise, renting out their property in France via Airbnb must declare their income to French tax authorities. And it sounds like France is also paying attention to the taxation aspect of enforcement, because many Airbnb hosts are not paying their taxes. So they're making a lot of money by just not paying taxes. This is the situation with Oregon, and it sounds like it's kind of a global issue. Municipalities not being able to properly tax Airbnb hosts. Airbnb itself also provides details of all yearly rentals to the French tax office, meaning renting out property in the country is rather less appealing than it has been in the past. So now that municipalities are becoming aware of the tax situation, hosts know that they won't be able to capture as much of that revenue if they are actually forced to pay the right taxes. So this is a disincentivization for anyone who wants to buy an Airbnb anywhere, really. The second article is out of Bloomberg, and it is entitled, Hungary Aims to Quadruple Tax on Airbnb-Style Rentals in the Capital. Hungary plans to almost quadruple a tax on short-term rentals and to suspend new licenses for Airbnb-style apartments as Prime Minister Viktor Orban's government moves to tackle a deepening housing crisis in Budapest. A draft proposal would raise the levy on such rentals to 150 forint. That's an ironic name for the currency, is the forint, because there aren't many properties that are for rent for residents. The 150,000 forint equals 405 US dollars a month from just 38,400 forint, a difference of 111,600 forint, or $300 per month, the economic ministry said in a statement on Monday. There would also be no new licenses for short-term flats in 2025 and 2026. The restrictions, which would only apply in the capital, are designed to address soaring rental and property prices that have been partly fueled by the proliferation of flats on Airbnb and Booking Holdings, Inc. Housing costs have almost quadrupled over the past decade in Budapest. Residents of the city's 6th district, one of the most popular areas for tourists, last month backed a total ban on short-term rentals in 2026, following years of complaints about noise, trash, rent, and rental cost increases. The district's mayor has promised to pass legislation by the end of the year in line with the result of the local referendum. And so it sounds like even Hungary knows that short-term rental is a deeply flawed business model that hollows out communities, erodes the character of neighborhoods, creates disturbances, reduces housing availability, and drives up real estate prices. This is not just an American phenomenon, not an American issue. This is a global housing crisis caused by Airbnb. And with a show of hands, who here listening or watching would feel good about buying a house next to an Airbnb rental, one that you know is an Airbnb? My guess is that no one would want to buy a house knowing full well that it's right next door to an Airbnb rental. Who would want to do that? How would a realtor advertise that? Oh, and one of the amenities of the community is that you're right next door to an Airbnb. Isn't that great? That's like an upgrade that increases your property value, right? No one would do that. No one would prefer to live next to an Airbnb. You're not asking your realtor, can we get a house right next to an Airbnb house? That's what we really want in our neighborhood. We feel like that's going to improve our quality of life. No one would ask for that. No one wants to live in a neighborhood with an Airbnb. It does not improve the neighborhood, the community. Everyone knows this. If given the choice, people would prefer to not live in a neighborhood with an Airbnb. If that gives you any idea of the general consensus of the public's opinions and feelings about Airbnb, it's not good. And the third article is out of phys.org, and it is entitled Collecting Taxes on Airbnb Home Rentals Could Help Curb the Rise in the Housing Crisis. And this article discusses a tax policy experiment. Home rental platforms like Airbnb are known to drive up housing costs, but a new study shows that doing a better job of collecting taxes owed by these home rentals appears to slow the rise in home prices. The finding suggests that tax policy can help mitigate rising home prices, particularly in areas where there are a lot of short-term rental properties. Hotels have to pay taxes imposed by local governments on short-term rentals. Hotels have to pay taxes imposed by local governments on short-term rentals, Smith says. Airbnb hosts are supposed to do this as well. But previous research tells us that as many as 75% of hosts aren't paying those taxes. That makes being an Airbnb host particularly profitable. This drives up property prices by effectively encouraging people to purchase homes specifically to put them on short-term rental market. This increased competition makes those properties more expensive for people who are seeking to rent or purchase a long-term home. That's right. Airbnb is driving up rental rates and home values artificially. So this argument says that if people know they can get away with not paying taxes, they'll buy homes to turn them into Airbnbs because they can become very profitable just by not having to pay taxes. And so this increases demand and competition, which drives up prices. And there may be merit to this argument, but in my opinion, taxation is not the best answer because the solution hinges on enforcement, which will be years in the making. Municipalities admit that they have to get the personnel to actually do the enforcement, and this is going to take a long time, and it's just dragging out the process of restoring affordability and availability to families. And so, in my opinion, this is really not the best method of clamping down on Airbnbs. There is an idea to have companies that oversee short-term home rentals, like Airbnb, collecting relevant taxes right off the top to help slow the rise in home prices, and a study was conducted in Florida to test this idea. The researchers collected county-level tax data from all 67 Florida counties for the years 2012 through 2019. Between 2015 and 2019, 41 Florida counties adopted tax enforcement agreements with Airbnb, in which Airbnb collects the taxes directly from the hosts who are renting the homes. So this isn't dependent upon the municipality's ability to collect taxes. Airbnb takes those taxes right off the top. In the remaining 26 counties, hosts are responsible for paying the taxes. This is the way it's been done traditionally. By 2019, 41 counties having rules in place with Airbnb meant that the company collected 100% of the taxes that were due on Airbnb rentals. The researchers found that housing costs went up in every county, but housing costs in those counties that did not have the Airbnb tax enforcement went up 1.6 to 5.8% more than housing costs in the counties that did have those tax enforcement agreements. So it looks like there was a substantive difference between the implementation of these two tax collecting systems. In short, our findings suggest that implementation of tax enforcement agreements with the companies that oversee the short-term rental industry could make a significant impact in slowing the rise of housing costs. But simply taxing STRs won't prevent hosts from buying homes, nor will it create more housing unless the taxes are so burdensome that the profit margin is no different from long-term rentals. So in my opinion, the best solution is to ban Airbnb and impose catastrophic fines if for any illegal listings. In my opinion, boards of real estate should include a rider in every home purchase that makes it illegal for the buyer to operate a short-term rental in that property. Does anyone remember the big stick that municipalities used on people who didn't comply during the pandemic? I do. It is going to take a big stick of enforcement or banning STRs outright to turn the tide of this housing crisis that is going on worldwide. So the takeaway is that Airbnb overall is harmful to communities that are designed for full-time residents. Short-term hosts are abusing the model originally intended for people to make extra money by renting out a room in their house. The global opinion about short-term rentals is that they are disruptive and they destroy the character of communities. People overall do not have a favorable opinion of short-term rentals. So what do you guys think? What is your opinion on short-term rentals? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? I'll continue to bring you more stories about this issue, and hopefully we'll see substantive progress on purging short-term rentals from suburban communities to restore housing availability and affordability for families. So again, I want to thank you for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, comment below, share this with someone you know, and don't give up when you can get ahead.